Welcome back to Follow the Compass North. Today we're going to continue part of our knot tying series, and I'm going to be using the large diameter natural cotton ropes and some paracord for demonstration. That way we can see it and then we can actually execute it a little bit more finely. This larger diameter rope is wonderful, a great demonstration. However, it does have a very loose weave to it, and some of these knots end up just cinching down on itself. So we'll be using both to show both possibilities with these knots. Today's knot is going to be the Canadian Jam. Now, I've been calling it that for years. I don't know where it came from. I learned this knot right as I began working in the wilderness, and I found it to be a very useful knot to have in my repertoire. However, a somewhat wasteful knot to be using in a survival situation, because this knot is extraordinarily difficult to untie. And all we're going to do to create this knot today is we're going to create a slip loop. We've done slip loop in previous videos, but if you haven't seen those, you go around your hand, grab the body, and then you have this loop that self-strikes. If you were to pull it straight through, it slips out. This is not a fixed loop, this is a slip loop. There's a few forms of this, but this is the simplest slip loop out there. Now, if you were to pull this and tighten this down up around something else, we can use this rope as an example. If I were to cinch down on a lot of material, it acts like a self-tightening ratcheting system. And it works really, really well. However, as you tighten it more and more, this trailing end here will pull into the knot and stop it from pull into the knot and completely strike itself, and then it falls apart. So this ratcheting method that you have here to tie down a bundle of firewood or two sticks together to help make like a bench or create something in the wilderness will work until this pulls through. So in order to stop this from pulling through, all we're going to do is an overhand knot. Didn't leave myself with a lot of room here, but we'll get it. We have just enough to do that overhand knot. Now, when I start cinching this down, that end cannot pull through, and I have a system that keeps its own tension without any assistance. The way this looks on a smaller diameter rope, we'll use a 550 here for example. Leave this one out to see what we're dealing with. I'd like to have a little bit of separation here between the overhand and the slip loop so you can see that this safety is what's stopping this from completely pulling through. I'm going to use the orange line here and do the same thing around my cotton line. I'm going to create a slip loop, and then to prevent this end from pulling through, we create a square knot somewhere in here. I like to use a square knot near the end so that you'll see that this will start getting pulled through, and then it'll stop it, and we'll have that ratcheting technique. So if I start ratcheting now, you'll see that line pulling in more and more until that overhand knot catches like that, and now I've basically got this little miniature noose, and that's the Canadian Jam. So we pull this around our material, pulls tight, you can ratchet it back to gain a lot of tension. It'll hold pretty tightly by itself there, and you've got yourself a nice jammed piece of line, and thus the Canadian Jam. To finish this off, you do another overhand knot and make sure it gets down nice and tight where it can't pull in any of the body of the line and loosen that slip loop. So you're basically just locking a slip loop around other material. The reason why I called this a wasteful knot in the beginning of the video is because this is really hard to untie in most wilderness applications. Today I think we'll be able to strike this just fine because this has a little bit of give to it. We can pick at this knot and undo our safety here and work it off just fine. However, the tighter we pull this, the harder that's going to be. And usually when you tie this overhand knot down, this safety down on the fixed loop, usually you just cut it off and leave this single line as a single wrap, no frap type system. We'll discuss wraps and fraps when we get to lashing in a future sheltercraft video. Alright, so I'm going to pick this free. You can see it's difficult even though I did not apply a lot of tension to it. Only a moderate amount. It's already difficult to untie this knot. If it had been cut, I'd been wasting resources. It's not my preferred method of lashing things down in a survival situation because it destroys your man-made resources. However, if I'm tying something to the top of my car, or I'm lashing down a tarp on a trailer, or I'm doing something in the front country, I'm going to use the heck out of this knot, because this knot really does a great job of cinching itself down. Now, even if you strike this, nope, it's having some trouble. I don't want to hurt myself. You're still left with an overhand knot. Now, that overhand knot can still be picked apart, and you can still have that line at the end of the day. But the tighter and tighter you use this, the more likely it is you're not going to be able to recover that resource in a survival situation. That's unacceptable. So there you have it, the Canadian Jam, which is basically your standard run-of-the-mill slip loop with a overhand knot in the end, preventing it from slipping all the way through. Used to ratchet and lash down on a system, and then a overhand knot used to secure and create a safety. This is a very effective way of tying items down, but a very wasteful way of using your resources. If you enjoyed our content here today, we have more knot tying videos. We have other survival and homesteading videos on our channel. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments and we'll get to them. Leave a like, subscribe, anything that you do that helps the channel is greatly appreciated. Thank you and have an excellent day.